Oh, that Anbernic was so good. Man, I have had my fill of Anbernics. I swear, that is so nice to finally have that off my plate. Oh, come on!
Greetings and welcome to the channel. This is Mikhailov from Team Retro, where we like retro games and the devices that bring them to us. It's time to take a look at another vertical handheld from Anbernic's XX line. This is the Anbernic RG40XX V. Anbernic has been flooding the market with these cheaper devices as I reviewed the 35XX, 35XXH, 40XXH, and now the 40XXV. As we have done with nearly every Anbernic handheld released this year, we're going to put this device through its paces and find out if it's worth your hard-earned dollar bucks. So let's dive in and get to work. At time of recording, the Anbernic RG40XX V can be purchased directly from Anbernic's website for about $65. The unit I am using is a white model provided to me by Anbernic for the purposes of this review. As is always required, all opinions are my own, I'm not being paid, and they are not seeing this video before it is published. It's time to hop onto our mount and ride in Spec Town. The RG40XXV is powered by an H700 quad-core ARM Cortex-A53 processor. The GPU is a dual-core G31 MP2. The device has 1GB of LPDDR4 RAM and utilizes a dual microSD card setup for operating system and storage. The screen is a 4-inch IPS touchscreen with OCA lamination and a 640 by 480 resolution. Giving the device life is a 3200 mAh battery. For connectivity, this handheld has Wi-Fi capable of 2.4 and 5 GHz built in, as well as Bluetooth 4.2. The device ships with a custom 64-bit Linux OS and is compatible with custom firmware from the community. Let's unbox the RG40XX-V. Inside the box is the unit, user manual, and charging cable. This device is the usual Anbernic packaging. Nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Alright, let's go ahead and let's tour the device, and we are going to start at the top here, where you have a couple of indicator lights and an HD mini out to connect to a television or monitor. Now, I want to take a look at the back of the unit here, because they made some really nice changes to the L1 and R2 compared to something like the RG351V. These are definitely angled and they're not easy to depress. You can rest your fingers on them here like you would intend to, and then if you need to intentionally press them, you can. Let's give a quick listen to how they sound. So you could see here they're kind of loud. They have a very stiff clickiness to them. And if you were to use these exclusively, like say at night in bed, you would probably anger your significant other. Also of note here is this flat back. This is also very reminiscent of the RG351V, and they're keeping a very similar design aesthetic to that specific handheld, and we will do a comparison a little bit later in the video. So let's take a look at the D-pad now. It's got a nice mushiness to it. You don't really hear it. As a matter of fact, it doesn't make very much noise at all. So this is actually a fairly good D-pad. I actually am a fan of this D-pad. I like it a lot. Joystick here is a single switch style joystick. It seems fine enough. I don't really feel the need to have this, but there is some Nintendo 64 emulation that may require the need for this. So I'm going to forgive its presence, but again, I'm not a fan of joysticks on these cheaper handhelds, but I guess if you are somebody who wants to emulate Nintendo 64, this is a good fit for you. Now, the start and select buttons, I'm actually really happy that they put them up here. Most handhelds will have them down here, and I'm really not a fan of that. I like that they are actually close to the D-pad and they're closer to the face buttons. Now, I know behind me there's a Game Boy right up. There it is. So right behind me there's a Game Boy, and you could see that those are a little bit further down, but they're not all the way down to the bottom. With this handheld, this is closer to an OG Game Boy. The buttons aren't all the way down here. They're not like on the side or some weird location like we've seen in handhelds in the past. They are right here, accessible, so that you're not going to interfere with the joystick here if you're using the joystick. It's a decent travel from the joystick to the selector start. It's also decent travel from the D-pad to the start and select buttons, or from a face button. So I actually really enjoy this. And you have your menu button up here. This has been a staple on every XX handheld so far. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the face buttons. Let's do a sound test here. So yeah, kind of on the loud side. Again, you have that rubber membrane connection, but these are very clicky and they are going to make quite a bit of noise, but they don't feel bad. They actually feel responsive, and I think they are fairly decent buttons, especially considering this price point. All right, let's take a look now at the left of the device where you'll see your power and a reset button there, and volume buttons on the left side of the device. And then you'll also notice there is your TF1 slot and your TF2 slot. Then on the bottom, you have the USB-C cable as well as a 3.5 millimeter head jack on the bottom of the device here. Let's compare this device to another vertical handheld called the Anbernic RG40XXV. This handheld is quite old now, and I keep one around that I put Sakura Retro Mod buttons and a Game Boy sticker on. The 351V is very sentimental to me at this point, and is actually very near and dear to my heart. But you can tell it also looks dated. Putting it next to the 40XXV is a great example of how it started versus how it's going. You can really see everything Anbernic has learned over the past 3 years when it comes to making these retro handhelds. If you have the 351V and are happy with it, this might serve as a decent upgrade at around a similar price point. Now, out of the custom firmwares available, my personal favorite is actually MuOS. Wait a minute. How did TechDweeb get on my handheld?
I can read your mind.
Much better. Okay. So as I was saying, my favorite firmware is MuOS, and this one I feel gives you just the most bang for your buck as far as features. Not only does this have built-in port master support, but it lets you choose your cores on a per game or per system basis, and it usually tells you which of the best cores are available to use. So I like to use Mesin, but FCEUMM here for NES seems to be labeled as the favorite. So if I hit the X button here, it'll just go ahead and switch to directory, and then I can click assign core. And then if we go back and we start up a game, it will just start up under that core. And so overall, I feel that this is just a very easily accessible operating system out of the custom firmwares available. The beta version for the 40XXV can be accessed on the MuOS coffee page. However, this is actually getting a full release very soon. For gameplay, I want to do something different. I've reviewed a bunch of Anbernic XX handhelds, and they are all meant to emulate mostly 8 and 16-bit systems, with N64 and PlayStation really being the ceiling of what this device is capable of. Therefore, instead of trying to push the handheld to its limits, I want to show up some software tweaks we could do in RetroArch to simulate playing these games as if they were on their original consoles. We could do this through the use of overlays, shaders, and filters. If you're interested in applying these little tweaks, I highly suggest taking a look at a video and written guide by Mr. Retro Gamecore. Russ does an excellent job explaining the whole process. I will leave a link in the video description. Definitely check this guide out because I'm about to show you how applying these filters and shaders can enhance the experience of emulating these games on these modern handhelds. Let's take a look at the Game Boy systems first. Now you can use one of two methods. You can either keep integer scaling on and fill the space with an overlay to simulate the look of the original system, or you could turn integer scaling off and apply a filter to even out the pixels. I've opted to go with the non-integer scaling option because I want to make the most out of the screen's real estate. I also have color correction turned on and interframe blending set to simple, so this is a pretty authentic experience combined with this overlay. I also like how the overlay for Game Boy Advance preserves the 3:2 aspect ratio while giving a nostalgic appearance. For consoles like NES and SNES, we're using a sharp, shimmerless shader with a CRT overlay in order to balance the pixels and create the illusion that we are playing on an old television. This is great, and to me, the flexibility of an operating system like MuOS combined with these shaders and overlays take an already impressive piece of budget hardware and enhance the experience even further. Now let's start to wrap things up with my final thoughts. And let's start with the price. This handheld is under $100. And I think if you're a fan of vertical handhelds, you're getting a pretty sleek and capable device for that budget price point. At $65, this handheld comes in cheaper than a AAA game and can offer many hours of entertainment on a pretty beautiful 4-inch screen. This handheld is also a great update to the 351V if you loved that handheld, but it's starting to show its age. I'm glad to see a handheld come along that shows how a company is learning and developing. The D-pad on this handheld is also pretty great. It feels good, and movement as well as combo attacks in fighting games are very easy and comfortable to pull off. Of course, no device is perfect, so let's look at the negatives. The buttons are very clicky, which might not be a deal breaker, but they are noticeable in quiet environments. Anbernic again decided to put an LED in the joystick, which on these budget devices just doesn't seem necessary to me. Anbernic could probably save on production by leaving the LEDs out and pass that savings on to the customer. And finally, Anbernic has made a lot of these XX devices. While it's good to have options, I worry that this will cause people to not want to buy one of these devices because the next one is right around the corner. The company is moving very fast, and I think they can benefit by letting these devices simmer for a bit going into the holiday season. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this a device you are considering? Do you have one? And what do you think is the best use case for a device like this? And please feel free to continue the conversation in the Retro Handhelds and Steam Machine Discords, where you can find me hanging out in between videos. And if you want to support the show like these wonderful people on the screen, you can do so by going to my Patreon page. Links for all those places are in the description. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you in any way. Every smash of that button helps the channel grow and allows me to get more content out to you. But until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.